the whole tape series and everything else because that was so in-depth and so good about forgiveness. It was exhaustive what he did about forgiveness. And it was just so on point. So that was something I used when I was studying about forgiveness. And just using not just the human factor, but the scriptural references about forgiveness, what it is to forgive, the steps of forgiveness, not going through a sociology, not going through a psychology. We're talking about going through the spiritual healing that takes place in forgiveness, about what we're supposed to do based upon the scripture, what forgiveness is all about. Because a lot of times we don't forgive. We just say, I accept your apology, but we don't forgive. No, we don't forgive. Because when we see the person again, it registers back in our mind. What they did, how they did it, and everything else. That's not forgiveness. God doesn't view us that way. When we ask him to forgive us of our sin, he cleanses us from all around. If he makes us clean, we've got to learn how to make people clean. We've got to know how to wash them, how to make them clean. And he talked about that extensively in his book on forgiveness, in the CD package and everything else, about how to clean them. How to make them whole before you, that you don't see that any longer, that it's not there, that you don't bring that back up, because it's gone. Because that's what God does to us. He removes it as far as the east is from the west, and we have to learn how to do that. And that was one of the topical studies that Miles Monroe about the kingdom. I had his book series about the kingdom for Miles Monroe. It was great, dealing with the kingdom. I was dealing with kingdom. God was making some reference to me about the kingdom, about what the kingdom is about with peace. And I saw he had written a series on, so I looked at that series that he had written to see how it supported things in which God had revealed to me. And he had a lot of good stuff in it. And if I had saw him when I went to, when we went to Bahamas, I was going to tell him. I appreciate his book. But he was out. We went by his house, but he was gone. He was in ministry someplace else. But I was going to let him know. That I appreciated that because it was great, the revelation that God gave him about the kingdom being about peace. And we need to establish peace among all things. That's what we are supposed to be about. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. They were the only ones that got reference to children dealing with peace. So that's the kingdom. The kingdom is peace. And we have to be, Jesus was the Prince of Peace. Well, there has to be a king of peace. That's God. So God is about peace. And you get peace through love. The big three that's given by the Spirit of God. The first three, love, joy, peace. See, it's key. It's factorial even based upon the reference by the Spirit. As we're growing in the Spirit, we should be having peace. We should be having that manifested in our life because it's the kingdom. So those topical books, again, they're good, but you have to be careful. Make sure you're not getting books that are slanting to talk about a view, an opinion, their thought on things. If they keep it scriptural and foundational in the scripture, and you can see that, and it's manifest lining up with what God is revealing to you, then it's a resource that you can look at. You can do. But just be very careful. That's why I put these together. Probably posters would be the only one that probably not in this group, because posters are just that. They're just posters for information and detail. But these three here, be very careful about how you utilize them in your study, about how you incorporate them, because they can be based upon opinion rather than fact. You want the fact out of what's being stated. You don't want the opinion. You want to throw the opinion away, because the opinion is not going to help you. Any questions about those four? The first four we dealt with was the concordance, study Bibles, Bible dictionaries, atlas, and maps. And then these four here. And that's what we're just looking at, that part 2. Once we get to etymology, and once we're looking at the word study, origin, and everything, then we get the second part, which is the resources. And the resources is what we look at that are external things. The etymology is internal things. What we're looking at the depth of the word study, the study, its emphasis on the scripture itself, the makeup of the scripture, whether these words are pronouns or nouns or adjectives or conjunctions, or whether they're definite articles, indefinite articles, whether we're looking at something that says the versus a, because if it says a something, that means it's one of many. If it says the something, it means it's the only one. So we have to be careful how those words are being used, how they're being displayed. That's internalized. That's what the etymology is. Then the resources are external things that are outside, that we bring in, dictionaries and atlases and things like that, to help us enhance our study and reinforce the things that we already have. So any questions? Anybody have anything that they want to bring up? Enhance this. Add to. Think of something else that's a resource that I didn't think about. There is one other resource that I didn't put on here that I just now thought about. It's one I'm using right now. It's a computer. I'm using one right now. Got an iPad. You can use computers, in order to help you as far as pull off this information, study Bible, concordance, everything. You can have it on your computer. A lot of people walk around with apps galore, pouring out of Bible study things. And that's what it's based on. They use their computer as a Bible study reference. It is their Bible is on the computer, and all of their references, resources, and everything is on the computer. They make their personal notes. They tie things together. They make their personal references. They build their whole study Bible on their own for going into detail and in-depth about it. And they just build it and just get the apps and pull certain scriptures down, reference it to other things, and they build their own. And that's their study. And that becomes their study Bible for what has been revealed to them. And you can utilize a computer to do that. I do that at my home. A lot of times. I'm up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's what I'm doing. I go in the room, close the door, and I'm in there on my computer, and we have a wonderful time. Because as God reveals, we just bringing stuff out. He just showing, we just in the scriptures. I've got several Bibles on my computer. I'm pulling down stuff. I'm going online, something I wanted to bring you into and incorporate pictures, thoughts, and I'm just getting that information, and it's just, and I'm like, okay, sounds good. It's inspired. So I tell people, computer's not evil. Some people, oh, that computer, what they do to me in the pulpit with the computer, they're defiling. No, the computer's not evil. It's the operator that's evil. Because that computer does not do it. That computer will sit there from now until you turn, never do anything. Unless I tell it to do something. It's only going to do what I tell it to do. It does not do anything on its own, all by itself. It can't. It's incapable of. I have to give it some type of operation to do. I know I used to program computers out at Moody Air Force Base when they used to have the HVAC 800s. That thing was huge. One computer would cover the whole room. And I used to have to hang the racks, the tapes. And if I hung the wrong tape, they wouldn't have the information. So I had to make sure we knew the sequence of what tapes to hang. And this was before we became digitalized. Before I wrote a program to do a card reader. And I wrote the program out at Moody Air Force Base for CIFs, because we were leaving the UNIVAC. And I wrote the program because they wanted to do away with all the card readers. Because people had so many cards, they were being messed up because they weren't being punched right. So I wrote the program. I said, you don't have to do your card punch anymore. You put your cards in. We will read it internally in the system, and they called it SIFT. It was the first binary computer system that was written at Moody Air Force Base. And he went up to Lowry. You can go to Lowry Air Force Base right now.